The day my son left me at the nursing home. He didn't even look back. I was sitting in the passenger seat of his car, watching the large gray building come closer through the windshield. The sign outside read, Greenwood Senior Living Center. A nice name, a polite name, but everyone knows what places like that really are. Waiting rooms for the end of a life. My son Kevin parked the car and turned off the engine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I looked at him. 38 years old, well-dressed, confident, the kind of man people would describe as successful. But that morning, there was something different in his eyes. Something cold. "All right, Dad," he said, forcing a polite smile. "We're here." "Here." I nodded slowly, pretending my hands were shaking as I opened the door. I have to admit something. At that moment, I looked exactly like the man Kevin believed I was. Old, weak, confused. That was the whole point. Because Kevin believed he was the smartest man in the room. And people like that never imagined someone might be watching them. My name is Arthur Whitmore. I'm 72 years old. And the fortune my son thought he was about to inherit was worth a little over $42 million. Kevin helped me out of the car, holding my arm like I might fall over. "I know this isn't easy," he said. That sentence almost made me smile. Not easy. For who? For me, or for him? We walked toward the front doors together. The building smelled like antiseptic and old carpet. Inside, a receptionist greeted us with a friendly voice that sounded practiced. "Good morning. You must be Mr. Whitmore." Kevin nodded. "Yes. My father is checking in today." Checking in. Like a hotel. The receptionist handed him a clipboard full of papers. Forms. Medical history. Emergency contacts. Financial agreements. Kevin filled them out quickly. Too quickly. But I said nothing. Instead, I sat quietly in the chair beside him and looked around the lobby. There were other residents sitting nearby. Some staring at the television. Some sleeping. Some simply staring into space. Kevin noticed me watching them. "It's a good place, Dad," he said. "They take excellent care of people here." People. Not parents. People. I nodded slowly. "I trust you, son." Kevin looked relieved when I said that. That was the first mistake he made. Trust is very powerful when someone thinks they already have it. After the paperwork was finished, a nurse came to guide me to my room. Kevin followed us down the hallway. He carried my suitcase. One small suitcase. That was all he believed I had left. Room 214. Small. Clean. A bed near the window. A wooden dresser. A chair. Kevin set my suitcase beside the bed. "Well," he said awkwardly, "this is it. This is it. The final stop in my life, according to him." I sat down slowly on the bed. "You'll visit, right?" I asked. Kevin avoided eye contact for a second. Of course. Of course. That was mistake number 2. Because lies sound different when someone already knows the truth. Kevin stood up. "I should get going. Work is crazy this week." Work. Yes. Kevin had been very busy lately, especially since he became the acting manager of my financial estate. But we'll get to that later. Before he left, Kevin walked over and placed his hand on my shoulder. "You'll be comfortable here, Dad." I looked up at him with tired eyes. "Thank you for taking care of me." Kevin nodded. Then he turned around and walked out the door. He didn't hug me. He didn't look back. And he didn't realize something very important. The entire time we were in that room, someone else was watching him too. Because 3 months before Kevin brought me to Greenwood, I had already prepared for this moment. You see, when you spend 50 years building companies and managing millions of dollars, you develop a certain instinct about people, especially about your own family. And about a year earlier, Kevin had started behaving differently. Small things at first. Questions about my will. Questions about my investments. Questions about what would happen when I wasn't around anymore. That's always an interesting phrase. When you're not around anymore. At first, I ignored it. But then Kevin suggested something strange. "Dad," he said one evening, "you should let me help manage your finances. It's too much stress for someone your age." Someone your age. I remember smiling when he said that. Because Kevin didn't realize something. I had already noticed the paperwork. The documents he left open on his laptop when I visited his office. Estate planning forms. Power of attorney requests. Property transfer drafts. Kevin wasn't planning to help me. Kevin was planning to replace me. So I did what any careful businessman would do. I started preparing. The first person I called was my lawyer, Margaret Collins. She had worked with me for 22 years. Sharp mind, no nonsense, and completely loyal. When I told her what I suspected, she didn't look surprised. "Arthur," she said, leaning back in her chair. Family betrayals are unfortunately the most common kind. I nodded. So what do we do? Margaret smiled slightly. We watch. Watching is a powerful strategy. Because when someone believes they are getting away with something, they reveal everything. Over the next few months, Kevin's behavior became more obvious. He visited more often. He insisted on reviewing my financial accounts. He suggested simplifying my estate structure. Simplifying. That word always makes lawyers nervous. But I pretended to agree with everything. That was mistake number 3 he made. He believed I was becoming forgetful. Old men who forget things are very easy to manipulate. One afternoon, Kevin sat beside me in my study. "Dad," he said, sliding a document toward me. "This is just a simple financial authorization form. It lets me help you manage things if you're ever unavailable." Unavailable. I looked at the document slowly. It was exactly what I expected. A limited power of attorney. Harmless on the surface, but very useful if someone wanted access to bank accounts. I signed it. Kevin looked relieved. But what Kevin didn't know was that Margaret had already created 3 other documents. Documents Kevin had never seen. Documents that made his power of attorney completely useless without my approval. And that was only the beginning. Because the real surprise came a few weeks later. Kevin invited me to dinner at his house. His wife Emily was there. Their 2 children were playing in the living room. It looked like a happy family evening. But halfway through dinner, Kevin brought up the topic again. "Dad, have you thought about long-term care?" Long-term care. That phrase told me everything. Emily looked uncomfortable when he said it. Kevin continued. "You've had a few falls recently. That was news to me. And if something happens, it might be safer for you to live somewhere with medical staff." Emily interrupted quietly. "Kevin." But he ignored her. "There's a very nice place called Greenwood." Greenwood? Yes. The same place I was sitting in now. I remember pretending to think about it carefully. "Well," I said slowly, "maybe you're right." Kevin looked shocked. "You agree?" "Yes." That was mistake number 4. Kevin believed the plan was working. But the truth was much more interesting. Because that very same week, Margaret had already scheduled something. A meeting with the director of Greenwood Senior Living Center. And that meeting led to the most important part of my plan. The cameras. Small. Hidden. Perfectly legal. Greenwood had recently installed a new security monitoring system. Margaret negotiated something special. A private feed connected to my room. A private feed connected to the financial office where residents' documents were handled. And access to the building's internal logs. In simple words, Kevin believed he was putting me somewhere he could control. But what he didn't know was this. From the moment he dropped me off, I would be watching everything. Every conversation. Every visitor. Every document he tried to sign in my name. And eventually, every mistake he made. Because men like Kevin always make mistakes. Especially when they believe the person they betrayed is powerless. Later that evening, after Kevin left Greenwood, I opened my suitcase. Inside were only a few clothes. And a small laptop. I turned it on. Within seconds the screen filled with camera feeds. Hallways. Offices. The lobby. And most importantly, the administrative room where Kevin had already been asking questions earlier that day. I leaned back in the chair beside my bed. The nurse had turned off the hallway lights. The building was quiet. But the game had just begun. Kevin believed he had successfully removed me from the picture. He believed my money would slowly become easier to control. He believed my mind was fading. But the truth was something he never imagined. From that small room in Greenwood, I was watching everything he did. And the moment he tried to take my fortune, I would already have the proof. Because the real trap hadn't been the nursing home. The real trap was Kevin himself. And he had just walked straight into it. But the first real betrayal, the one that proved exactly how far Kevin was willing to go, would happen only 5 days later. It would start with a visit to my bank, and end with something that shocked even me. Because when Kevin thought no one was watching, he revealed the one secret that could destroy his entire life. And I saw all of it. 5 days after Kevin left me at the nursing home, he made his first move. And if I'm being honest, it happened even faster than I expected. That morning started like every other morning at Greenwood Senior Living Center. A nurse knocked on my door around 7. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore." I slowly sat up in bed, pretending to move like a man twice my age. "Good morning." She helped me to the small dining hall where residents gathered for breakfast. The same routine. The same quiet conversations. The same television playing morning news no one was really watching. To anyone observing from the outside, I looked exactly like the other residents. An old man living out the final chapters of his life. But inside my pocket was my phone. And inside my room was the laptop that showed me something no one else in this building could see. Everything. After breakfast, I returned to my room and closed the door. Then I opened the laptop. The screen lit up with the security feeds Margaret had arranged for me. Hallways, lobby, administrative office, and another small window connected to something even more interesting. My bank. Margaret had also contacted the regional manager of Whitmore National Bank, a man named David Langley. David had known me for almost 30 years. When Margaret explained the situation to him, he agreed to help immediately. Arthur built half the commercial district in this city, David had said during our meeting. If his son thinks he can manipulate his accounts, I want to know about it. So David arranged something useful. Every time Kevin attempted to access my financial accounts, I would receive an alert. At exactly 10:42 that morning, the alert appeared. Account access request, Kevin Whitmore. I leaned closer to the screen. Kevin was at the bank. That meant the game had officially started. A few seconds later, my phone rang. It was David. Arthur, he said quietly, your son is here. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. What does he want? He's requesting account management authority. Of course he was. Kevin already had the limited power of attorney I signed weeks earlier. But that document only allowed him to assist with small financial tasks. He wanted something bigger, something permanent. What exactly did he ask for? I said. David lowered his voice. He's asking to move $12 million into a new investment account. $12 million. Kevin wasn't even trying to hide his ambition. And what reason did he give? I asked. David hesitated. He said your mental condition is declining. That made me smile. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Kevin had just made a mistake he didn't even realize yet. What did you tell him? I asked. I told him we need medical verification before approving that kind of transfer. Perfect. That requirement was something Margaret and I had prepared weeks earlier. Any major financial change required confirmation from two medical professionals stating that I was mentally incapable of managing my finances. Kevin believed he could solve that problem easily. And that's exactly what he tried to do. 3 days later, the next piece of the puzzle appeared. Another alert. This time from Margaret. New medical document filed. I opened the file she sent. And there it was. A medical evaluation signed by a doctor named Dr. Stephen Harlow. The document stated something very convenient. Patient Arthur Whitmore is experiencing progressive cognitive decline and early-stage dementia. I read the sentence twice. Then I laughed quietly. Kevin had just tried to declare me mentally incompetent. That was a bold move. But it was also extremely dangerous. Because Margaret had already checked something important about Dr. Harlow. He wasn't my doctor. He had never examined me. And the signature on that document was about to become the most expensive mistake Kevin had ever made. I called Margaret immediately. Did you see it? I asked. Yes. What do we know about this doctor? Margaret sounded calm. He runs a small private clinic outside the city. And he signed the document without meeting you. That was exactly what we hoped for. Good, I said. Good. Margaret asked. Yes. Arthur, your son just tried to legally declare you mentally incompetent. I know. And you're happy about it. I leaned back in the chair beside my bed. Because now we have proof. Proof. That word matters a lot in situations like this. Because betrayal alone isn't enough to win. You need evidence. And Kevin was handing it to us piece by piece. Later that afternoon, the second surprise arrived. Kevin came to visit me at Greenwood. It was his first visit since the day he left me here. I watched him on the hallway camera as he walked toward my room. He looked confident, almost cheerful, which meant he believed his plan was working. I quickly closed the laptop and lay back on the bed. Kevin knocked once and walked in. Hey, Dad. I smiled weakly. Kevin, it's good to see you. He sat down beside the bed. How are they treating you here? Very well. That's good. Kevin looked around the room for a moment. Then he leaned forward. Dad, I wanted to talk to you about something. Of course he did. What is it? I asked. It's about your finances. There it was. Kevin continued, speaking carefully. You know how complicated your investments are. Yes. And with your health. I think it would be safer if I handled everything. I pretended to think about it. You already helped me with that. Yes, but the bank is being difficult. Difficult how? They need confirmation that I can fully manage your accounts. I looked confused. Don't they trust you? Kevin sighed. They need medical documentation. Medical documentation. The very thing he had already tried to create. Kevin leaned closer. Dad, have you noticed yourself forgetting things lately? I forced a small laugh. All the time. Kevin smiled. That's normal at your age. Then he pulled a folder from his briefcase. Dr. Harlow examined you last week. I looked at the paper slowly. Oh. Kevin tapped the document. He confirmed some mild cognitive decline. Mild cognitive decline. Kevin was trying very hard to sound concerned. But what he really wanted was control. If we give this to the bank, Kevin continued, they'll let me manage everything for you. I nodded slowly. That sounds reasonable. Kevin looked relieved again. But then I said something that surprised him. Let's ask Margaret first. Kevin's face changed instantly. Margaret Collins had never been his favorite person. She's just your lawyer, Kevin said. Yes. This is a family matter. Margaret is part of the family business. Kevin forced a smile. I'm sure she'll agree. I'm sure she will too. Kevin stayed another 10 minutes before leaving. And the moment he walked out of the room, I opened the laptop again. Because Kevin had just given me something very valuable. The entire conversation had been recorded. Perfectly clear. Perfectly legal. His voice. His request. His attempt to convince me I was mentally declining. That sentence stayed in the air. Kevin had now used the fake medical document twice. And each time, he was digging himself deeper. Margaret, I said quietly. Yes. It's time to move to the next stage. Margaret knew exactly what I meant. Are you sure? Yes. Once we start this, Kevin won't be able to walk away from it. I looked at the camera feed showing the hallway outside my room. Kevin believed he was slowly taking control of my fortune. But in reality, he was slowly building the case that would destroy him. I know, I said calmly. Good, Margaret replied. Because the bank just agreed to help us with something very interesting. What is it? Margaret's voice became very precise. They're going to approve Kevin's request. For a moment, I didn't speak. Approve it? Yes. But only under one condition. What condition? Margaret paused. Every transaction he makes will be monitored. Now I understood. Kevin believed he was about to gain control of my money. But the truth was something far more dangerous. We were about to give him exactly what he wanted. And then, watch him destroy himself with it. Because men like Kevin always reveal their true intentions when they finally think they have power. And the moment Kevin started moving my money, we would see exactly how far he was willing to go. But even I didn't expect what would happen next. Because Kevin's next decision would cross a line no son should ever cross. And when he did it, I realized something that chilled me completely. My son wasn't just trying to control my fortune. He was trying to make sure I never took it back. And the way he planned to do that would shock everyone involved. The moment Kevin gained access to my fortune, he stopped pretending to care about me. It happened the following Monday. At exactly 9:17 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. Account authorization approved, Kevin Whitmore. I stared at the message for a few seconds. Margaret had warned me this moment was coming. The bank had approved Kevin's request exactly as planned. But the approval came with something Kevin didn't know about. Every transaction, every document, every login attempt was now being monitored and recorded. The trap was officially set. I opened the laptop in my room and watched the financial activity feed connected to my accounts. Kevin didn't waste any time. Within 15 minutes, the first transfer request appeared. $850,000. Internal account movement. Kevin was testing the system, seeing how much freedom he had. The bank allowed it. 5 minutes later, the second transaction appeared. $1,200,000. New investment account. I leaned back in my chair and watched the numbers move. Margaret called me shortly afterward. It's starting, she said calmly. I see it. Kevin has already moved over $2 million. Yes. And he's doing it quickly. That part didn't surprise me. When someone believes they've finally gained control, they rush. Greed always moves faster than patience. Let him continue, I said. Margaret hesitated. Arthur, if he keeps moving money like this, he could cause serious damage. I know. And you're still comfortable letting it happen? Yes. Because I needed to see the full truth. Not just suspicion. Not just hints. I needed proof of exactly how far Kevin was willing to go. By noon, the total transfers reached nearly $4 million. Kevin was moving funds into multiple accounts. Some were investment portfolios. Others were something else entirely. Margaret noticed it first. Arthur, one of the receiving accounts belongs to a private company. What company? Brightstar Ventures. I frowned slightly. I've never heard of it. Neither have I. Margaret typed quickly on her keyboard. I'm pulling corporate records now. A few seconds passed. Then she spoke again. This is interesting. What is? Brightstar Ventures was registered 6 months ago. And? Margaret paused. The listed director is Emily Whitmore. Emily, Kevin's wife. That discovery made everything suddenly clearer. Kevin wasn't just moving money for investment purposes. He was transferring my fortune into accounts controlled by his own family. Quietly, quickly, and without my knowledge. Or at least, without the knowledge he thought I had. Later that afternoon, another alert appeared on my screen. But this one was different. It wasn't a bank notification. It was from Greenwood's internal system. Visitor check-in, Kevin Whitmore. Kevin was coming back. I closed the laptop and returned to my bed, pretending to read a newspaper. A few minutes later, he knocked on the door. Hey, Dad. I smiled. Kevin. Nice surprise. He looked relaxed, confident, almost proud. How are you feeling today? Oh, you know, I said, chuckling softly. Old bones. Kevin laughed politely. Then he pulled a chair closer to the bed. I wanted to check on you. That sentence was almost amusing, because Kevin had never checked on me this frequently before. Thank you, I said. We talked about small things for a few minutes. The weather, his children, how nice the nursing home seemed. Then Kevin casually brought up the topic again. Easier how? Kevin smiled. I can handle your investments properly now. Wonderful. Kevin leaned forward slightly. You don't have to worry about money anymore, Dad. That sentence had a strange tone, like he believed he had already taken ownership of everything. I never worried much, I said calmly. Kevin nodded. Well, you shouldn't have to think about it anymore. He stayed another 20 minutes before leaving. And the moment he walked out, I opened the laptop again. The numbers had changed dramatically. The total transfers had now passed $7 million. $7 million. Kevin wasn't just testing the system anymore. He was moving aggressively. But something else appeared on the screen too. A new account login. Not Kevin's. Someone else. Margaret called again within minutes. Arthur, we have another person involved. What do you mean? Someone else logged into the Brightstar Ventures account. Who? Margaret's voice grew serious. The account holder is listed as Daniel Reeves. The name sounded familiar. Very familiar. Then I remembered. Daniel Reeves used to work for one of my companies almost 10 years earlier. He had been fired for manipulating supplier contracts. Kevin must have known him from that time. That's not good, Margaret said quietly. No. Reeves has a history of financial fraud. Then Kevin just made his biggest mistake. Margaret sighed. Arthur, your son has now transferred almost $8 million into a company run by a known fraudster. I closed my eyes for a moment. $8 million. If I hadn't been watching this unfold, Kevin might have actually succeeded. But the real shock came an hour later. Because Kevin wasn't finished yet. Another transaction request appeared. This one made my heart stop for a second. Requested transfer, $15 million. $15 million. Kevin was trying to move nearly half my fortune in one transaction. Margaret called immediately. We can stop it right now. No. Arthur, let it process. You're risking too much. No, I said quietly. I'm revealing the truth. Margaret understood. Because once Kevin moved that much money, there would be no way for him to claim he was protecting my interests. It would be undeniable, intentional, criminal. The transfer completed at 4:12 p.m. Kevin had now moved over $22 million from my accounts. Half my fortune, straight into a company secretly owned by his wife and operated by a disgraced businessman. I sat quietly in my room at Greenwood. The hallway outside was silent. Most of the residents were eating dinner. But inside that small room, the final pieces of the case against my son were falling into place. Margaret called again that evening. Arthur, we have everything we need now. Yes. Bank records. Yes. Video recordings. Yes. Illegal medical documentation. Yes. Margaret took a deep breath. Are you ready to end this? I looked at the small window beside my bed. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. For a moment, I thought about Kevin as a child. The boy who used to run through the backyard laughing. The boy who once told me I was his hero. Then I looked back at the laptop screen. $22 million. Sitting inside a shell company connected to fraud. Yes, I said quietly. It's time. Margaret's voice became calm and precise. Good. Because tomorrow morning, We're going to take everything back. And Kevin? I asked. Margaret paused. Kevin is about to learn something very important. What's that? That the man he thought was helpless in a nursing home was actually building the case that could send him to prison. The next morning would change everything. Because at exactly 9:00 a.m., Kevin would walk into his office believing he had just secured the fortune of a lifetime. But before noon, the police would be knocking on his door. And when they did, Kevin would finally realize the truth. I wasn't the one trapped in Greenwood. He was. And the walls of his prison were built entirely from his own greed. The morning everything ended, I woke up earlier than usual. It was just after 6. Greenwood Senior Living Center was still quiet. Most of the residents were asleep, and the hallway lights were dim. But I wasn't thinking about the nursing home. I was thinking about my son. Because by the end of that day, Kevin's life would change forever. I sat beside the small window in my room with my laptop open. The financial dashboard was still showing the same number. $22 million. That was the amount Kevin had moved into Brightstar Ventures. Half my fortune, half my life's work. All transferred because Kevin believed I was weak, confused, and powerless. But that morning, the game was finally over. At exactly 7:30, my phone rang. Margaret. Good morning, Arthur. Good morning. Her voice was calm and professional, but I could hear the energy behind it. Everything was ready. The bank has frozen the accounts, she said. Good. Brightstar Ventures can't move a single dollar. That meant Kevin had lost control of the money before he even realized it. But the next step was much bigger. Margaret continued. The Financial Crimes Unit has already reviewed the evidence. And they're opening an official investigation. I looked at the quiet hallway outside my room. Today? Yes. Kevin had spent months planning how to take my fortune. But he had no idea how quickly things can collapse when the law becomes involved. Where is Kevin now? I asked. At his office. And Daniel Reeves? Margaret checked her notes. He's meeting Kevin at 9 o'clock. Perfect timing. Because the police would arrive shortly after. By 8:45 that morning, I was watching the live financial alerts on my laptop again. Kevin had logged into the Brightstar Ventures account, probably planning his next move. But every attempt to move the money now showed the same message. Transaction denied. I could almost imagine the confusion on his face. Kevin probably believed the bank was having technical problems. He tried again. Denied. And again. Denied. At exactly 9:12 a.m., my phone rang again. This time, it was David Langley from the bank. Arthur, the investigators are heading into Kevin's office building now. I nodded slowly. Good. They asked if you want to attend the interview later. I will. David paused. I'm sorry it came to this. So am I. Because no father ever expects to watch his own son destroy himself. But Kevin had crossed too many lines. And there was no way back. At 9:37 a.m., Margaret called again. They're inside the office. What happened? Kevin tried to log into the Brightstar account again. And Margaret allowed herself a small laugh. He didn't understand why the system locked him out. Until the police walked in? Yes. I imagined the scene clearly. Kevin sitting at his desk. Daniel Reeves beside him. Both men confident they had secured millions of dollars. And then the door opens. 2 investigators step inside. Mr. Kevin Whitmore? The confidence disappears instantly. Margaret continued explaining. They asked Kevin about the transfers. What did he say? He claimed he was protecting your assets. Of course he did. That's the excuse most people use when they get caught. But the investigators already had everything. Bank records, signed documents, the fake medical evaluation, video recordings, even the conversation Kevin had with me in my room. Every piece of evidence was ready. And Reeves? I asked. Margaret sighed. He tried to leave. That wasn't very smart. But the moment the investigators showed him the recording of our conversation, his story collapsed. Because in that recording, Kevin clearly said something very dangerous. You don't have to worry about money anymore, Dad. I'll handle everything. Not with me. Not for me. For himself. By noon, the situation had become much more serious. Margaret called again. Arthur, they're issuing formal charges. What kind? Financial fraud. I closed my eyes for a moment. Fraud. That word carries a lot of weight, especially when millions of dollars are involved. What about the doctor? I asked. Margaret almost sounded amused. Dr. Harlow? Yes. He's already confessed. That surprised even me. What happened? The investigators showed him the medical file. And He admitted Kevin paid him to sign the document. That was the final piece. The fake diagnosis, the illegal financial transfers, the partnership with a known fraudster. Everything Kevin had built his plan on was now evidence. Late that afternoon, Margaret arrived at Greenwood to pick me up. For the first time in weeks, I left the nursing home. As we drove through the city, I watched the buildings passing outside the window. The businesses, the streets, the same places I had spent decades helping build. Are you ready for this? Margaret asked. Yes. We arrived at the financial crimes office around 4:30. Kevin was sitting in a small interview room. When he saw me walk in, his face changed completely. Shock, fear, and something else. Realization. Dad, he whispered. I sat across from him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Kevin looked exhausted, like a man who had just watched his entire life collapse in a single day. Why? He finally asked. The question was simple, but it carried years of disappointment behind it. Why did you do this to me? I looked at him carefully. Kevin, I didn't do this to you. His voice cracked. You set a trap. No. I shook my head slowly. You built the trap yourself. Kevin looked down at his hands. I was just trying to secure the future. For who? For my family. And I wasn't your family? Kevin didn't answer. Because deep down, he knew the truth. He had stopped seeing me as his father. I had become an obstacle, a fortune waiting to be claimed. Kevin, I said quietly, you could have asked me for help. He looked up. You would have given me everything eventually. Yes. So why wait? That sentence hurt more than anything else he had done, because it revealed something simple and painful. Kevin didn't want to inherit my legacy. He wanted to take it. Right now. At any cost. I stood up slowly. This didn't have to happen. Kevin's eyes filled with regret. But regret comes too late sometimes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I believed him. But the consequences were already moving forward. Because when someone commits fraud involving millions of dollars, the law doesn't simply walk away. A week later, the case became public. The money was fully recovered. Brightstar Ventures collapsed overnight. Daniel Reeves disappeared into legal battles of his own. And Kevin faced the consequences of the choices he made. But life has a strange way of continuing. Months later, I moved out of Greenwood. I bought a small house near the lake. Nothing extravagant, just quiet, peaceful, a place where I could enjoy the time I had left. Sometimes I sit on the porch in the evenings and think about everything that happened. About trust, about family, about the strange things money can do to people. But I also remember something important. The day my son put me in a nursing home, he believed he had already won. What he didn't realize was that the entire time, I was watching everything. And sometimes, the person everyone believes is powerless is the one holding all the cards.